Hi everyone, this is just the practical video of the bird for IPPB to go along with the PowerPoint presentation. So if you've not already looked at the PowerPoint presentation, please do, and there's a voiceover to talk you through that. So just thought we'd have a look at the bird. I'll talk through the different dials and show you how to connect up the circuit. So you've got your bird here, okay, everyone can see. We've got two dials on either side, and hopefully if the writing's not rubbed off, you should see clearly over the top of each one of the dials what the function is. So first of all, on the left hand side of the bird, we've got the limit on the manometer. So this corresponds to the dial on the front, okay? So setting this will limit the pressure that the patient can reach when they take a breath in with the bird. It's set at 20 in the middle of the dial, and then you can increase it and decrease it accordingly, okay? And as you're increasing this, just need to watch the dial on the manometer at the front to make sure that it's limiting at the point that you're setting it on here. So if you want your patient to just be achieving 20 centimetres of water, then set it 30, increase it up, watch it get into 30, and so forth up to 40 centimetres of water. Your other side dial, so on the right hand side of the bird, you've got your starting effort. So again, increase and decrease from the middle, depending on how your patient is. So for instance, if they're really struggling if they're really struggling to trigger the bird because they've just not got enough flow rate, enough inspiratory effort, then you can make it a little bit easier for them to trigger and just decrease it. Or vice versa, or if they're struggling and they're just constantly triggering it and they're sort of overdoing it, then you can make it harder for them to trigger and increase the trigger. Generally you don't have to move that one too much, okay? We can move on to the front dials. So top front one, we've got the inspiratory flow rate. So inspiratory flow rate, again, sort of starting in the middle, you've got a little arrow at the top which corresponds to where it should be. So here it says decrease and increase. So again, increase in inspiratory effort, inspiratory flow rate, and decrease in inspiratory flow rate. And sort of compared to this one's pressure, so this is measured in centimetres of water, corresponding to the dial on the front. This one's flow rate. So if you think about flow, litres per minute, how fast it's coming at you, all right? So they're slightly different. Down at the bottom here, is just your controlled expiratory flow time, and what we need to know about this one is we just need to turn it all the way off, so all the way around clockwise. And certainly if you're finding that you're having problems with your bird, just check that this is turned off and is all the way clockwise, okay? Last one is your on-off switch, so black dial at the very, very top, okay? Simply on and off, okay? So when we come to use the bird, we just need to make sure that we've got free oxygen ports plugging at the wall. We've got our white oxygen tubing, which we just need to push into the wall. Whether you need to take a flow meter out if you're on a ward, possibly, they might already be filled with flow meters, but certainly on ICU and HDU areas they should have something free. So pushing that nice and firmly into the wall, and then what sometimes you'll find is when you turn the machine on, it'll sort of trigger. So just making sure that you stop that. So the way to override the machine, in this side here you've got a little red pin, quite fiddly. Get your fingers on it and just pull it out, and that's just the way to stop the machine, okay? So if you're trying to override it, so if it starts blowing when you first plug it in, okay, then we need to plug our circuit in. So your circuit will come in the bag like this, okay? Mouthpiece, nebulizer chamber, and the tubing, and this line here, which is your pressure line, okay? And this just goes into this end of the bird. You should have in the packet as well another little separate connector here. That should also come in the bag, okay? Under normal circumstances, we'd actually move the filter to the patient end, but if we're thinking about COVID at the moment and aerosol generating procedures, what we're going to do is keep a filter at the machine end, but also add a second filter in at the patient end. So for the machine end, with the little extra connector, We're going to plug that into there, and we're also going to plug our pressure line in. And again, the pressure line is really important, because if that's not plugged in properly, what you'll find is that the pressure just isn't registering on the manometer at the front. So it's really important that it's A, plugged in at the machine end, and B, plugged in at the nebulizer end. Quite often this will come undone, and what you'll find is that your patient won't be able to trigger the pressure, and it won't be showing on your manometer. So just make sure that's nice and securely in there as well, and on the top. Okay, so then we'll just add a second filter in now. So second filter in at the patient end, pop that in there, and we're ready to go. Obviously you don't have to use a mouthpiece. You can use an anaesthetic face mask, a bit like you use with the Clearway if you need to, but most of our patients are fine with the mouthpiece. Last thing we need to do before we can set off with our treatment is just pop some saline into here. So opening up the neb chamber, and you can either see the pink vials on ICU sometimes, or the clear vials, but the most important thing you need to check is that it's 0.9% saline. Pop sort of 5-10 mils into there, check the date on it, make sure it's in date, just so that it's not completely dry. Okay, so then we're ready to go. So starting off, if I was going to treat a patient with the bird, want to start with our limit on the manometer just in the middle at 20. Our starting effort on this side in the middle of the dial there. Our flow rate again in the middle. And just have a bit of a practice round with your patient, and just get them used to the feeling of telling them nice tight seal around the mouthpiece with the lips, and getting them to feel in control of instigating the bird and stopping it. So tell them to take a nice big breath in. Using the manometer here is a bit of visual feedback for your patient, so get them to focus on just starting off to achieving 20, so watching the dial swing to 20 and getting them to hold the breath for as long as they can at 20. That way we're going to get that nice collateral ventilation. Okay, nice and steady, and get them to do five or six breaths. All right, main thing we tell them as well is that as they breathe out, they stop the bird, so they're fully in control. They're taking a breath in to initiate the breath, and as they breathe out, or even if breathing out isn't enough for them, just get them to blow out, or sort of a forced exhale, and that will stop it. Once they've got used to that, what you're aiming to do is increase your pressure up to 40 centimetres of water as your patient can tolerate, and also increase your inspiratory flow rate as well. So ever so slightly progressing your treatment each cycle, tweaking that inspiratory flow rate up, other way, and increasing your pressure. And what you want to do is, again, use that dial for your patient, nice visual feedback so they can see the pressure that they're wanting to achieve for that. Okay. A bit of troubleshooting. Again, depending on what your problem is. Certainly if it's not triggering, you turn it on and they take a big breath in and it's not triggering, just check that your white tubing's plugged into the wall properly. Sometimes it can be quite tricky. You'll think you've plugged it in, and actually it won't be fully locked in, so just give that a wiggle, or even take it out and put it back in again, make sure it's fully in. Pressure line, like we talked about, sometimes the pressure line can come loose, and normally the culprit is here. It'll come loose there and be detached. All right. Another little trick is just make sure this is all turned off clockwise, like we said at the start. Okay. Quite often we do find that patients are just struggling to trigger it. Certainly our sort of weaker, more deconditioned patients. So again, turning down the trigger, the starting effort will just help them with that. Or again, sometimes they really do struggle to stop the machine, so sometimes just being on the red pin on this side to sort of guide them, and almost not take over the breaths for them, but just help if they're struggling to stop it on the first couple of breaths as they're getting used to it. Just using the pin, moving the red pin in and out to just take a bit of control. They're probably the main problems. Alright, so yeah, thank you for listening to the demonstration of this, and if you've got any questions, drop the clinical educator an email, or if you've had any problems with the bird that you think we haven't covered, then let us know and we can have a chat through your specific experience. Thanks for listening.